It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and with us today to talk about her book, Made for This, The Catholic Mom's Guide to Birth, is Mary Haseltine. Thanks for being here, Mary.
Hi, Kyle. It's so good to be here with you.
This is really good timing because my wife is due in September, so I'm just here to take notes. So you can.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. So start with, before we get into a lot of the tips and suggestions that you have that are in the book, what's your background with childbirth?
I have been a birth doula for about almost 7 years now, and I'm a childbirth educator. And I've also given birth to 5 of my own babies. There
you go. Congratulations.
And due any day now with our 6th.
Oh, there you go. When's the due date?
Yeah. Official due date is the 15th. So.
All right. Very good. So could you explain what a doula does?
A doula is a professional support person for a woman during birth. At least a birth doula. There's also postpartum doulas who help during the postpartum time. But a birth doula offers physical, emotional, informational support for a mom before, during, and sometimes after birth, and sometimes spiritual support too as well. Like, as a Catholic, I often have Catholic clients that want to bring their faith into their birth, so I often bring a spiritual component to the birth as well. So we are hired by the mother, so we work independently of the doctor or the hospital, and we provide support so that she can have the birth that she is hoping to have and give her the means and help to do so.
And I think that spiritual side is a very interesting component, something we don't talk about a lot of times, maybe with doctors or whoever's going to be doing the delivery. But before we get into that, can you talk a little bit about the logistics from the medical side of things that couples should consider before childbirth?
Oh, gosh, there's a lot of things to consider. There's so many choices to make during your pregnancy about birth and about prenatal decisions. And it's really overwhelming, honestly, for a lot of first-time mothers, how many choices you really do have. And a lot of times, the choices aren't even presented to you. So you don't know the choices you have unless somebody is telling you that you have these choices. You're sometimes you're just told what to do when you really do have choices in these matters. So there's a ton of choices women have before her birth and during her birth about what she would like done. And in the book, I go through a whole lot of the choices that you do have when it comes to prenatal care, when it comes to the birth itself, labor and delivery, and the care of your newborn. And unfortunately, like I said, a lot of women aren't given those choices up front. You're just kind of told what's going to happen to you, and that's not really in keeping with the dignity of the human person. We need to respect women and respect that they have the right to make these choices for themselves and for their babies. And a doula is a really good help with that because she can help you know what choices you do have when it comes to your labor and your birth.
Can you give any examples of some things that might be overlooked by a medical provider that people might not even realize is an option? Like
a lot of the hospital protocols sometimes isn't always in keeping with what the evidence truly shows now, like eating and drinking during labor. A lot of the evidence shows that it's in almost every situation in a normal birth that it's totally healthy and fine and encouraged for a woman to eat and drink during labor, but a lot of times the hospitals haven't caught up to that information yet. So women are denied food or drink during labor, which is not always very helpful when you're going through one of the massive physical feats of your lifetime. So yeah, so that's just one small little option book that can make a big difference in your birth. If you want to eat or drink during labor, if you want to move around and the staff is telling you that, no, you can't, you have to stay in bed, things like that. Those are choices women should be given and offered. And then beforehand, prenatal testing, there's lots of different choices about that. So things that you can decline, things that you can accept, and every woman's situation is going to be different. So each woman should be treated with those unique situations in mind, very personally, and with her individual beliefs and family kept in mind during all of it. And we don't always get that, unfortunately, with our medical system.
Well, and there's probably a lot of books out there that address a lot of these things about planning for childbirth, but I don't think it's quite as common for people to also think about the spiritual side, and that's something that I think is really interesting about what you're doing here. So can you talk about the spiritual aspect of childbirth?
Sure. It's one of my favorite parts. It's as as human beings, we know as Catholics that we are body and soul integrated, completely. And what affects one part of us is going to affect the rest of us. And birth is such an intrinsic part of who we are as women that it affects all of us, body, mind, heart, and soul. So in my book, I go through a lot of that, how it affects us in all these ways, and how that's how God designed it. He meant for it to be intimately connected with our souls and our minds and our hearts. And even Pope John Paul II talked a lot about birth and how important it was and how connected it was to the Paschal mystery. And so the spiritual component of birth is really, really important. And it's something, like you said, it's often ignored. We just think, you just got to get through it and grit your teeth and bear it and get on to the more important things. But for something that is meant to be so connected not only to our womanhood, but to our marriages, their birth is kind of the culmination of the conjugal act. So it's something that's intimately tied with the sacrament of marriage. So we can see how this very physical act is also a very spiritual one as well, as that love between husband and wife is met face to face. It's really profound, and we don't often think of it in that way. We just think of it as something medical to get through, and it can be so much more than that. And the saints, and like I said, Pope John Paul II and some other popes and Fulton Sheen have all talked a lot about birth. So I bring up a lot of that in the book and talk about why it is so important spiritually to women and to men too.
Yeah. We're talking with Mary Haseltine. The book she's talking about is Made for This, The Catholic Mom's Guide to Birth. You're talking about St. Pope John Paul II, and we talk about theology of the body on this show pretty regularly. And I know you make a tie-in with theology of the body and theology of birth. Can you explain that?
I will try.
Okay.
So there's several chapters in the book on how, the theology of the body leads to a theology of birth, because our bodies are meant to speak a language. So what is the language of birth? What are we saying with our bodies? And Pope John Paul II referred in several of his letters to the power of birth and what childbirth meant. And he talked about it as it fully reflecting the Paschal mystery of Christ, which is a really powerful statement, right? That our bodies as women during birth, we have to die to ourselves. Our bodies are literally laid down, and we offer all of ourselves in a very, very real and raw way to bring new life into the world. And what a beautiful language that is, that our bodies can speak that language. So in the book, I go into a lot more depth of what that means and what birth was like in the beginning, originally meant to be, what it happened as a result of the fall, and then what it can be like in the light of the redemption of Christ, and which is kind of, I take that note from JP2's Theology of the Body, the way he goes through that. So it's our bodies, like I said, they speak a language, and birth is a huge part of that.
Yeah. What do you think is something that people often get wrong or misunderstand about childbirth? Maybe as a cultural, as a whole, maybe as individuals, kind of misunderstanding or not really seeing childbirth for what it is?
A big thing is that it just doesn't matter, that the choices you make don't matter, that as long as your baby's healthy or not dead at the end of birth, that's all that matters. And that's something I really disagree with. I think the process, as Catholics, we're not an ends justifies the means type of people. Mm-hmm. We believe that the process matters, that how we get somewhere matters, that the dignity of the human person throughout the process matters. So women need to be treated with that dignity, and the babies need to be treated with that dignity in mind for the entire process. So we're not just outcome based when it comes to birth, or at least we shouldn't be. We should be concerned with the whole process and stay away from that language of, well, all that matters is a healthy baby at the end, because no, that's kind of dismissive of the woman's whole experience that is really united to her body, her mind, her heart, and her soul. So I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest myth I would like to debunk in my book, because God designed it all, and He doesn't make mistakes. He designed our bodies to work correctly, and He knew what He was doing. So in the majority of the time, women's bodies know exactly what to do and exactly how to give birth. So we don't need to always treat it as this huge medical emergency. It can be something beautiful and something in which our bodies are glorifying God.
Another thing I know you talk about in the book is not just leading up to birth and the planning going into birth, but also post-birth. Can you talk about some of the issues that you might address in your book? Like
the postpartum time, yeah. Unfortunately, in our culture, we've really lost a sense of that sacredness of that postpartum time. In every other culture and time, that postpartum time was really set apart, either like through religious tradition or cultural tradition. A woman was really, given that time to heal and to bond with her baby, and it was really set apart. And we've almost completely lost that in our culture today. And it's not healthy for us, for women or for babies or for families in general. So I talk in the book about how to kind of reclaim that time. It's hard in our modern day to reclaim that time because women are often expected within a day or two of giving birth to kind of go back to your normal life, and it's just not healthy or realistic. So there's practical tips for how to reclaim that time and how to honor that time that God gives us and is meant to be a part of our transitioning into a family and welcoming this new child into the world and giving the mother the time to heal. And I give tips to fathers to help make that happen, and to the community in general to help support families in a better way, because our postpartum depression and anxiety rates are through the roof right now. And a lot of that is related to how we treat the postpartum period. And we really need, as a church, to do a better job of protecting that and reclaiming that time for women and families.
Yeah. Do you have advice for women's mothers? Not everything goes smoothly. Not everybody's able to get pregnant in the first place. And then, deliveries don't always go smoothly, and postpartum doesn't always go well. And there's all depression and things like that. Do you have advice for women that are struggling with some of these issues?
Yeah, in the book, I go into a lot of the complications that can happen, either as a result of, just things that has just happened because of original sin, or because of the results of somebody else, or who knows why. But yeah, complications do happen, and sometimes things don't go as planned. And I really hope it's clear in the book that God has a unique plan for each mother and each baby, and He wants to be there, and He wants to work in and through their unique situation. So yeah, whether it's the birth or whether it's the postpartum time, God is there in that, and He can redeem any situation. Yeah, I talk in the book about birth trauma, which is a very real thing in our world, that women can actually experience traumatic births, and it's often not talked about. Because, like I said before, we often have this line that all that matters is a healthy baby, but a lot of women go through very traumatic situations during birth, and while we want, of course, to prevent them entirely when that does happen, in the book I talk a lot about how to heal from that, and how you have to recognize that is a very real thing, and get help if needed, and work through that with people that you trust, and be honest with yourself about what happened and what could have been different, and how God might have been still working in and through that situation.
Any other last-minute advice for husbands or family and friends?
Let's see. I have a whole chapter for fathers in the book, so
I'm looking forward to reading that.
You'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of fathers being a part of birth, and actually, my pal JP2 also said that he really encouraged fathers to be present at birth. So yeah, if fathers can be supportive of their wives before birth, but also during the birth process itself, it can be really powerful in a marriage. It's a really intimate time in a marriage, and yeah, so I really encourage fathers to be as a part of the birth as much as their wife wants them to be, and that's going to look different for each couple and each personality. But yeah, being an open and honest and loving servant to your wife during pregnancy and birth is just a beautiful way to live out marriage and to live out that call to lay down your life for your bride. So that's my one encouragement to fathers. Yeah.
All right. Well, where can we send people to get a copy of the book and to follow up with what you're up to?
My website is maryhaseltine.com. You can find me there or on Facebook. And you can buy the book on Amazon or at oursundayvisitor.com.
All right. Again, it's called Made for This, The Catholic Mom's Guide to Birth. Thank you so much, Mary, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And congratulations and good luck with the new baby.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.